So thank you all for coming, first and foremost. My name is Jaime Novoa. I work for K-Fund. We are a 50 million euro VC firm based in Madrid, although we also have Toby here in Barcelona. We're early stage VC. We've made 20 investments so far. Like the vast majority of those investments are SaaS companies. That's why we're putting together these, and also obviously to find new interesting SaaS companies to invest in. The idea, I don't know, how many of you came to the previous one, to the first one we did? So just a few people. So basically the idea to put this together came out of from Toby and myself. Like most of the SaaS SaaS events, we feel like usually evolve around product and technology, and there are many areas that are not usually covered in these kinds of events, mostly like customer success, sales, marketing, recruiting, many other things, finance, like the first one. So the idea is to have like an informal conversation. We usually try to bring people who are doing it or who have done it, and that's the panel that we have. And it's just like an informal conversation. It's going to be moderated by Luigi. Luigi is a former VP of sales of Wispy, and he's also working with a bunch of SaaS companies these days. A couple from ours, like White Eyes, who are over there. And Luigi will take over. He'll manage the whole thing. After the event or after the meetup, we have beers outside, and we also have pizzas who have been sitting there for 3 hours, or they're going to be a bit cold. But that's the best we could do. I'm sorry. And I'm gonna let Luigi take over and have the conversation. And let's do it pretty informal. So if you have questions, feel free to interrupt them, and just ask whatever you want. Okay? All yours, Luigi.
Thank you, Jaime. So today we have here probably 3 of the most interesting scale-ups, right? That were born in Barcelona, and all of them are in a very interesting moment, right? We have Chris Evans from Redpoints, who is the VP of Global Sales at Redpoints. We just raised a few months ago a big round of VC capital, expanding, right? We have read something on the news. And Michael Schimmel, who is the Chief Commercial Officer of Cantox, another very interesting companies that I remember in 2014 I had just moved to Barcelona, and they were in a very early stage, so a lot of things went on as well there. Moving also to other countries, in UK with the headquarters, and then Oscar Macià, who is the CEO of Force Manager, that a bit in analogy with Redpoints in the last 6-7 months, right, a lot of things happening. Today the audience is mostly made by people working in the SaaS industry, right, sales professional. So I think here what is probably interesting for them to know is of course to know a bit about your start, your company, your vision, but probably the focus today is what are your challenges, what's the status of your go-to-market, your sales machine, what is the focus you are and the challenges you are having to move your companies to the next level. If you have a playbook, what's the focus of this playbook? If you are going more enterprise, or you're going more SMB, or if anything has changed in the meanwhile. Of course, I think it would be also interesting, Chris, we were having a chat, and it was the last 2 months, how many people have you hired?
3 months, 25 salespeople in 3 months, yes.
Therefore,
I've had to interview and be involved in each of those final hires.
And I assume that, Oscar, for you is the same, for Michael, and therefore I think
that scale, but
not that much for me.
I don't think anyone's done that scale, it's just crazy. But
therefore, that requires a lot of energy, and I think it would be also good for you to share what do you look in people when you are hiring, right?
Yep.
Especially now that your needs and the professionalization of your revenue machine needs to become perfect.
Yep.
So, do we start from Chris?
Yeah, sure, okay. You asked a huge amount of questions of things you want to know.
Let's start with your, talking about yourself, your company, and...
Okay. All right, so I work at Redpoints. Anyone heard of Redpoints? Hands? Just so I know, so I don't have to... Okay. So Redpoints, we provide online brand protection for brands, okay? So whether it's copyright, which would be more like Universal or Disney, maybe it's sports fashion, maybe it's more like Fila, companies like that, or technology like B&O, Bang & Olufsen. If there are counterfeit products being sold in the online marketplaces or in social media, then we find and we remove it. And we do that mainly through our technology platform, with a bunch of bots and a whole bunch of very smart product guys in the background. Don't ask me to explain too much how that works with different bots, deep machine learning, image recognition, artificial intelligence. I'm making it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but the smart guys are in the other room. So that's what we do as a company. We work with about 300 brands, and we're rapidly expanding, bringing on a whole number of new brands every month. I was brought into the company about 4 or 5 months ago now, so actually I'm quite young in the company, but in our company we have a saying where, a week is a month and a month is a year and so on. So I've probably been there, 7 or 8 dog years, probably, Red Points years. And in that time I was really brought on because the company had been able to secure a lot of revenue, investment, and they wanted to scale up. So they really wanted to grow the company. So they hired me to come in and do that, and in that time a lot of that has been to grow, implement a whole bunch of processes, build a sales playbook, grow the team, open up a New York office, do all the hiring that you just mentioned, 22, 25 people, depending on who you count, but a huge amount of expansion that way. I'm going to pause there and then see what question naturally
What type
comes
of
next.
structure do you have? And what type of focus? More SMB, more enterprise?
Yeah, so when I joined, I sat in front of the board and everyone was talking about that we need to grow into the enterprise space.
Mm-hmm.
The first question is, well, what is the enterprise space? It's really, really difficult to find a clear definition of what anyone means by SMB, mid-market and enterprise. I asked a bunch of smart people and got a bunch of smart answers, and none of them lined. So I took 2 options. One was I look at it from an economic or an analysis perspective. You went and spoke to an economics professor at Harvard and said, what is your definition? There's that way of looking at it. And that might be from 0 to 5 million is SMB, from 5 million to 50 is mid-market, and 50 to 500, and then over 500 or over $1 billion would be enterprise. So there was all these different brackets that I was finding, and I was finding it very difficult to really pinpoint one standard in the SaaS space. So it was one way of doing it that way. The second way was looking at it from an inside out perspective, as in, what do I consider, based on where Red Points are as a company, what do I consider an SMB or a mid-market or an enterprise should be? And after a whole bunch of analysis with me and my sales ops person, we came up with an extremely simple definition that we will run with now that we can evolve in the future. And here it is. An SMB we count as anyone who has 1 to 150 employees in their company. From 151 to 999, I bucket that into mid-market, and 1,000 plus, put that as an enterprise. And that works for us right now. So first of all is defining what do we actually call SMB, mid-market, and enterprise. And then on from that, we then started looking at where do we want to go focus our energy. Mm-hmm. And without giving too many names, so I've got NDAs in place and things like that, one of the big things that I think it's probably a whole nother topic on itself is around going into the enterprise space. Everyone talks about enterprise. Everyone's saying, I want to get into enterprise. Everyone wants to go win the $1 million deal and all these kind of things. And what you learn very quickly is the amount of time, effort, focus. Is your product ready? The benchmarking you're going to have to do, the process you're going to have to go through of those guys, the competitive situation that you're going to find yourself in, the length of the sales cycles, all of those things you have to take a huge amount of consideration into. Because ultimately you could go win 3 to 5 SMB, get the same revenue as one enterprise. So what do you want to go do? And that's one of the things that we spend a lot of time analyzing to make sure that we're getting the highest yielding results. Because if I go focus 30 people on enterprise, we could die quite quickly, right? Because we're not bringing in enough revenue. On the same note, I don't want to have everyone living in SMB because we need to be growing and making sure that we're getting into some of those more brands. So I spend a lot of time as well analyzing how much time and energy and effort we spend in SMB, how much in mid-market and how much in enterprise. Without giving away everything, it's kind of like this much SMB, this much mid-market, and this much enterprise. There's the right balance that we have right now.
And you have people working on SMB, mid-market and enterprise at the same time, or you have people specialized?
Yeah, so we also started off with someone who was special, or a couple of people who were very specialized. The issue being with that was their sales cycles were so long against their targets. We need them bringing in revenue. We're scaling. So having somebody who doesn't sell anything for 6 months isn't a good position to be in companies typically our size in the room. Okay, So then we ended up peppering it a bit more, giving people, look, you know, you got to
A
focus
bit of-
on this, but I also want to make sure that 50% of your time is spent in S&B accounts, X amount is in mid-market, and so on.
How do you find finding people that are able to enter big global enterprises and SMB? Is it easy to find these people?
No. Talent in general is always tough, and I don't mean talent as in there aren't a lot of talented individuals. There's a lot. It's more about finding the talent that fits your product, fits your company, fits your go-to-market strategy, fits your culture, fits the areas that you're trying to sell into. So actually, yes, it's very difficult.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe, Oscar, there is a kind of analogy in terms of stage of development, right, between you and Redpoint. And we had a discussion, I remember, a few months ago about that. What's the evolution? What do you think about what Chris just said?
A lot of things that you were saying is like we are quite similar. Probably we are facing the same challenges somehow. Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but
But that's for the
the mic is just to record.
Okay. So probably I'm facing most of the challenges that you guys are facing. One of our dreams is to go to very big corporations. Enterprise is like what everyone wants to do. I agree absolutely with you. What's enterprise? It's the question that you have to ask by yourself, because otherwise it's like very undefined, and the strategy is very complicated to execute. In our case, it's a matter of sales reps. As you can imagine, our solution is for field sales reps, for people that is in the field. So we need to analyze how many field sales reps they have in order to classify them. And one of the things that we discovered that works very well for us is to have a multiple classification or segmentation of the potential customers, not only by size, and we are segmenting them by fit as well. So this by fit. If they are fitting with our product, right?
Okay.
How likely they are to buy our
and
product.
how do you measure the fit?
Yeah, basically with some questions.
Questions.
You need to have a qualifying question system.
From the SDRs, from the
SDRs, and it's being
so before
completed
the first meeting.
Right, before the first meeting, and it's been completing along the sales cycle. So when I go to see the pipeline, I see clearly which opportunities are going to be fast movers and which opportunities are going to be like very, very slow because there is like a lower fit. For instance, if I get a double A fit, it's like, okay, these guys doesn't have a CRM, they're working with Excel, it's like they are suffering a super pain every day managing their teams. We have to sell this. So we expect the conversion ratio, I don't know, 50%, right? Otherwise, that if we find an opportunity that our fit is like very tangential, we can say that we expect like 20 or 25%.
So you also have a kind of a dual go-to-market strategy, SMB,
for big accounts and
SMB and strategic accounts.
Yes, we have the same. We have segmented the market between three different SMB, mid, and enterprise. We have specific resources for enterprise and the high range of mid, because we suffer the same thing that you did. We don't want sales reps that are not selling for more than 6 months because they get like very frustrated and it doesn't work. It's not like good thing to happen, right? And yes, and regarding the SDRs, right now we have the same SDRs for everyone, but we are starting to think that maybe it's a good thing to do to have separate SDRs for bigger accounts. Because the pitch is different, the way to approach the decision maker is different.
I totally
There's
agree.
so many decision makers in the same account, so it's a totally different approach. Not only for the sales rep, even for SDRs.
And also for the quotas, probably, right? The
Absolutely.
quotas that you give them. And then to go back to the segmentation criteria, one of the things that could be also an option, right? I like to segment, first of all, the target market by deal size expected. Probably to go back to your one way in the SaaS industry, of course there is an approximation, but deals above 30K are deals where probably you need to travel, that probably require sales cycle of 6 to 9 months, as well as tickets of 100K. And therefore, and I think another probably what we were discussing with Michael, right? And I think it would be good now if you can share with us. You were mentioning that you were going in the last few years to a higher ticket value strategy, and he helped to you, if I remember what you're saying, to start to focus more on a vertical strategy.
Yes.
Can you articulate a bit about this concept?
Of course, yeah, happy to. So I think Cantox, who knows Cantox? Anybody heard of? Okay, great. I guess we are kind of the strange animal here in this room because we're talking about SaaS. Actually, Cantox about SaaS and SaaS companies and selling SaaS solutions today. Cantox was founded in 2011, not as a SaaS company at all. Cantox is a regulated financial services provider. We are a payment service provider regulated by the FCA in the UK. So you would rather consider Cantox in the early days more like a bank or like an FX broker than a SaaS company. And that business grew very well. So the founding idea was to provide an online platform for companies to manage their FX needs, so buying and selling foreign currencies. That happens in most companies nowadays. You need to pay bills in foreign currencies because you buy raw material or machinery, or you have revenues in foreign currencies and need to convert them back into your own currency when you sell internationally, for example. So that was the main business of Cantox. We were approaching companies to open an account with us, and we tried to motivate them to transact with us. Very, very transactional business model. Not very sticky, so you are under huge competition. The banks, of course, react. Our main value proposition at that time was price and the more convenient platform. And a typical sell cycle was anything between some days up to maximum 2 months. So then a company was either convinced to shift their FX business to us or not. Now, as the problem with these kind of undifferentiated solutions at that time, it was basic foreign exchange products, is the competition gets quite hefty, and if you compete on price, it's a very downward spiral. So one thing that Cantox realized is that many companies that we dealt with have difficulties in managing the risk that comes with foreign exchange. So that's when Cantox decided to build software, a software stack, software solutions to help companies automate their FX management and their risk management around FX. And this is when Cantox shifted the whole business model in 2016 to become a SaaS company. So we are basically maybe the youngest SaaS company here although we were founded in 2011, really a SaaS company. We became May 2016, which is when we launched our first software products. That's also why I joined Cantox, because I'm personally coming from the software industry. I'm not a banker. I've never worked for a bank before, and I was brought in to help them redefine everything: the sales processes, the whole sales model, the marketing approach, as a chief commercial
officer. And what were
officer.
for you the main implication from a sales perspective? Because
yes.
in Wisby, we also had a transition from a servicing model to a 100% software as a service.
Yes.
It took probably more than 2 years,
Yes.
and it had implications.
Yeah, it had huge
What
implications.
were for you the implications?
I mean, let's start with the topic that we had already started to discuss, which is customers, the target segments. So the ideal customer profile that you always want to know first, that's always the starting point for everything, has completely changed. So we know we are now, before we had a very horizontal approach with a lot of inbound marketing, and nowadays we're having almost a pure outbound approach, going vertical to certain companies in certain verticals, because we know our software fits very nicely to their business model, and to other business models it does not fit at all. So we have the luxury now to hunt with a spear instead of a net. So that this whole go-to-market approach has changed. You already asked kind of the average the annual recurring revenue. Before we had something like 8K in average of annual recurring revenue coming from clients. Now we are at 50K in average. So that's quite an evolution.
And the sales cycle?
And the sales cycle, of course, that's the downturn. It takes us a bit longer to win those clients. So as I said before, we shifted from some days to up maximum 2 months. Now we are in average at 5 months. So as an average sales cycle length. So then, of course, implications on the sales team as such, the kind of profiles that we need now are very different from the kind of profiles we needed.
In which sense?
In the sense of being able to discuss implications on business models of our clients on C-level, versus before you were basically talking to a treasurer about
selling a one-off,
doing some trades with us.
Yeah.
So it's a very different maturity level and seniority level that you need in terms of the sales profile. So, but it's exciting, yeah, it's super exciting, and that allowed us also with our software solutions to move up the ladder of size of companies that we can address. I would say our biggest clients today, they are operating somewhere in the area of 1 billion revenue, having maybe 400 million of foreign exchange somewhere on the cost or on the revenue side, versus before our glass ceiling in the old world was maybe FX of 20 million, and now we're at 400 million. So you see this huge scale up in terms of addressable companies.
And I assume also that the three companies for the stage they are or are in the process of building a solid playbook.
Yes.
Do you have a playbook? And if yes, how do you make sure that the team executes the playbook?
Okay, so
That's a good question.
I mean, we have a very. I mean,
we'll start.
I just continue and then.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I mean, we have a very rigorous sales process.
A very rigorous.
Rigorous sales process.
Like the 200 pages of red points.
No, it's not a 20-page. It's actually
200, right? Was 200.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you go next. So basically, it's a 7-stage sales process. Nothing fancy, to be honest. I mean, the most important thing for us is the first stages where we talk about the business discovery, really understanding the business of our clients. Because when we go in, we come with something new. Today we have not yet received any RFP or any call where a client said, look, I need a solution for automating my FX management. This kind of request doesn't exist because that market segment is not existing. We are really bringing innovation to the market. So we need to understand as a first step very deeply the business of the client to see if we have a fit. Then once we have a fit, we based on that information that we gather, we present for the first time. Then we ask for some data, transactional data, to have the basis for business cases. So we sell a lot based on business case development to really justify the investment in solid numbers. So in ROI and
like
payback
a simulation
periods.
between what they are paying now and what they
It's simulation what they are paying now. It's transactional data to calculate the currency risk that they are engaged in. It's quite mathematical, like in your case as well. So we simulate how our solution would have handled their FX risk compared to their current hedging strategy, and what the reduction in risk is, and how much money that really is that is at stake for them. And then there are other elements of the business case, like calculating forward points, if they don't leverage it and stuff. Very FX specific. Once we have that business case ready, we go into a second presentation. After the second presentation, we go into commercial discussions, and then we have implementation workshops. So everything is quite detailed, and there is a clear sequence with clear conversion.
And that's
steps.
also detailed in how you get to the first conversation, like your SDRs and
we have scripted
who they have to contact and what's the cadence.
Yes, exactly. So we have.
Do they execute it, or is it challenging?
I mean, it's always challenging. If you have a sales team,
how do you make sure that they execute?
I mean,
what are your tips for us to?
My tip first and foremost is to have a consistent system so that you're able to have KPIs. So you need to have a CRM system.
What do you use?
We use Salesforce.
Salesforce. I guess. Who is a fan of Salesforce here?
I'm a fan. From a sales management perspective, I like Salesforce.
Who is a fan of Force Manager?
No, we use Salesforce somehow. So
you can integrate it, right?
Yeah, we can integrate with Salesforce. Indeed, in our case, we have so many systems in our sales stack. We use HubSpot as well. So basically, what you need to, in my case, in my specific case as force manager, as long as we are going to B2B and we need to have integrated all the channels. We have outbound, inbound. Now we have partners, so it's like quite complex to manage everything. We need to mix different solutions, and our solution is for field sales reps. So we have a big team of inside sales and SDRs, which need another kind of solution, right? So
And you have a playbook. Same question for you, right? How the
playbook is the
and,
typical
how
thing
make
that you
sure
are
they
always
execute it.
reinventing. At least in my case, we had to reinvent our playbook 3 times. Now it's going to be the 4th one. So, and because the company is changing over time, and it's changing quite related on the size. For instance, when we were maybe 3 times smaller than now, almost everything was coming from inbound. Right, so all the company was based on a reactive business model, right? So getting the inbound, trying to sell, trying to find the best solution for them, and so on. Then inbound basically was not scaling anymore. The acquisition costs were getting higher and higher. This is a typical thing that happened. I don't know if you guys suffer the same thing, but it's very common. Then you have to move to outbound. We switched gears to outbound. Outbound is working for us very well, and outbound needs like a very specific playbook, because with outbound you can be more strategic. You can go for different industries where you are a good fit and you are going with your use case and so on. But now we are doing another move to the different, sales model is going to be more on relying on partners.
And who's taking care in your company that the sales machine works? Do you have a sales operation?
Yeah, we have a brand new VP of sales that joined Force Manager 3 months ago, and we have sales operations manager. So we have, I would say, a very robust team right now in terms of sales. At the beginning, everything was managed by me, which was, by the way, very exhausting. Because being VP of sales, the CEO, and a lot of other things in the company is like impossible, because CEO, as you know, guys, is a full-time job, absolutely. And well, now we are putting everything in place in so many ways. So big changes here.
Interesting. Thank you, Chris. You?
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to start on the playbook side and then try and move away a little bit from red points and being more generic to people in the room, just so it's more applicable to depending on which industries you come from. But can you guys just give me a show of hands, like who's a salesperson? Okay, and then sales leadership. Okay, so most of the room is sales or sales leadership. Yeah. Okay, all right. Just wanted to get that for the next things I'm going to cover. So the first thing was the sales playbook. When I came to the company, we didn't have a sales playbook, right? We had lots of information from lots of different departments. So the first thing, me and the director that I hired to run the New York team, interesting story. When I was leaving my last company, I was interviewing for my director in the US, okay? The first day I arrived, I had him fly over to have a face-to-face interview. We liked him so much, and we had other people joining as well, that actually we then asked him to stay on for a week. So we had to take him shopping and buy a suit and all this kind of stuff. So he actually ended up, calling his parents and calling his partner and saying, I'm supposed to be going to Barcelona for an interview. Yeah, I kind of got the job and I'm staying here for a week. Right, okay. We need to build a sales playbook. So we were like, we're both new. Where do we get all this information from? So he and I started building a sales playbook, and then we pulled in the rest of the team. Sales operations, our IP team, marketing, blah, 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 you name it. We pulled in everyone into a room and said, guys, we need a playbook here so that salespeople can refer to something, so they go sell something, right? And we did a great job, and then everyone came back and said, Chris, we've done it. We opened up the sales playbook. It was 200 pages. I'm not joking. 200 slides. This is phenomenal. This is phenomenal.
It's a book.
No one's gonna read it. This is like the Bible, right?
The sales Bible.
This is the sales Bible. So now we have, if anyone's a question, I'm like, have you looked in the sales Bible? It's like, eyes roll. So now what we're doing is trying to, consolidate that into a real meaningful high-level sales playbook that then refers out to other material that is in that, because right now you give someone, a new person starting next week, I've got 2-3 more people starting next week. I could just say there's 200 pages, go, but that's gonna be pretty painful for them. So yeah, we do have a sales playbook. It's extremely comprehensive. A lot of information in there, but we're now going to condense that back and have more of an overview, maybe 20, 30 pages that refers out to additional material that someone can go and refer to.
And you do the
needed.
training to the team. How are you scaling the sales, the playbook to the team?
Right now, we run an onboarding 4 days when people join, which is quite taxing. We're looking at learning management systems and things like that, but right now we still have, I go in a room, we've got 3 people, I give them half an hour. You're up, and then we go train everyone. And here's the sales playbook. If you have any spare time for the next 3 years, go read it, So that's one thing. So we do have one, we need to consolidate it more, but there were some other points that you raised that I'd like to touch on. One is finding the right sales people, okay? So
we are getting there. We are getting it.
Okay, so I won't touch on that now?
No.
Okay, so next thing was you wanted to talk about...
How do you make sure that they execute?
How do we make sure, yeah. So one of the big things when I walked in, I said, what's our sales methodology here? Anyone name me a sales methodology? What have we got? Salespeople in the room, come on, hit me. Huh? Sandler, one. What else we got?
Spin.
You're not allowed to answer.
We are
Spin. What else?
Yes. Well done.
Guys, so many salespeople in the room. What sales processes do we have?
That's why you are here, right?
Okay, all right, it's fine. So then we're
There's one more.
Well, there's a whole bunch, Spin, Sandler, and a whole bunch
TAS.
of a whole bunch of different acronyms that you can run through, and that's more of typically a sales process that you're going out to your customer with, okay? And then you have what we call, a sales qualification, and sometimes they're rolled into a sales process, sometimes they're separate. Anyone give me a sales qualification that we might use? Very, very basic and old, BANT, something like that. Anyone heard of that? Budget, authority, need, timing. This is more selfish questions that we need to ask ourselves around, am I spending my time with the right person? Do you have budget? Do you have authority? Is there a need? Do I know the timing? I'm not going to ask all those questions in my value-add sales process like Sandler or Spin, but I want to know them if I'm personally wasting my time. So where am I going with this? So when I came in, I said, guys, what sales process do we have? We talk to people and we sell them stuff. Okay, cool. Do we follow any kind of outbound value-add sales process? Okay, and what kind of sales qualification do we use? So I ended up going away thinking and looking, what I thought might be the best ones to roll out to a company that's scaling, but we're not doing high-end real complex enterprise sales. I don't need a 27-step sales process. So in the end, I ended up coming up with Sprint, which is like a Chris revamp of Spin, because Spin is like from the 80s or something, maybe 90s. But fundamentally, it's still very strong, okay? And fundamentally, some people like Challenger, that's a bit more disruptive. I'm not going to go into all that stuff now. But so came up with Sprint, which is basically Spin with an R and a T added in it. So Spin would be, what's the situation? Discovery. Okay, we're going to discovery. What's the situation? P is what's the problem. Now R is what's the reason for that problem. Okay, so we're trying to jazz it up a little bit. Okay, then I, what's the impact of that? N, what's the need? And T, how are we going to transform you? Okay, so we've sort of revamped Spin a little bit and keep it nice and easy. And on a sales qualification perspective, we use MEDDIC. Okay, what are the metrics? Am I speaking to the economic buyer? What's the decision process? What's the decision criteria? I have identified pain, and C, do I have a champion? Right, so then we decided to roll those out as being what we considered to be, Eddie and I, my US director, we considered to be heavy enough to help us guide and drive a sale, but simple enough that we're not going through a huge, complex 15-step sales process that just clogs up Salesforce and clogs up our sales time in deal qualification, right? Or deal reviews. So it's things like that we started rolling out in order to make sure that we had the right approach to our customers. And when I asked, you're speaking to these people, do you know this, do you know that, do you know that? In 5 minutes, I can get a good understanding of whether you have a real opportunity or whether you're pitching something to somebody who cannot buy, who has no money, who doesn't really care, and they're not going to move forward, and they're just saying they're interested, okay? So that was one of the things I wanted to talk about when it came to, and again, that comes back to sales.
No, go back to you. Yes, and exactly. That goes back to your salespeople and doing an analogy with basketball, right, which is part of my route.
Yep.
Right. In a way, right. When you build a playbook in a company, it's basically you started to move the company from being a a team that is playing in the playground, right? They are just a good player having fun to a liga, right?
Yep.
To a professional team.
Yep.
And that comes to people, right?
Yeah,
What do
yeah.
you look into people? What type of people do you look when you build teams that need to execute this kind of playbooks and strategies?
Quite simple. It was when I was interviewing people, they'd typically gone through 2-3 rounds. Okay, so salespeople in the room, you're going to hate this, and sales leaders, you're probably not going to want to do it, but just do it. There was 2 things that I would always get sales.
And also,
people to do.
sorry to interrupt. And also, when you hire sales leader, right? Because
and sales
you are
leaders,
hiring also directors in US or people that manage people.
Yep.
I think it would be interesting, right? The 3 of you also to share a bit. What do you look into people? What type of people do you look for? And also, I think we can also close, right? Another 5-10 minutes this meeting, and also have people maybe asking questions or just having drinks in the terrace.
Okay.
Is what tips do you give to people here that probably in 1, 2, or 3 years they will be in a stage where you are now?
I'll just shall I finish off on that thing I was going to say, and then we can. Okay.
Please.
So when I'm hiring a salesperson, I throw them under the bus, and after a nice conversation, I say, okay, so what company do you work for now? I work for Chris Software Solutions. Fantastic. How long you work there? 2 years. Great. Do you have to prospect as a part of your job? Yes, I do. Ring, cold call me. You've got the owner of XYZ on the phone. Pitch. Go. People just draw. No, you're a salesperson. You've been doing this for 3, 4, 5 years. You tell me you can prospect. I want to bring you onto the sales team. I need you to cold call me. Go. And you very quickly learn who's good and who isn't. Very quickly. Oh, hi, it's Dave here. Are you free? Have you got a minute?
How are you?
I was wondering if you might possibly give me a... Okay, no, right. 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you the same question again. Let's talk about your background. 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you to cold call me again. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Cool? Okay. All right. That's number 1. Number 2, if they make it past that, ask someone to present to me. And exactly what you were talking about, and when you were referring to impact, I asked them to give me a presentation. In that presentation, if they do not give me a full impact or return on investment, made up, because I don't know anything, but I want them to be able to articulate the impact of doing nothing versus doing something. What's the negative versus the consequence, the negative consequence versus the positive consequence of a purchase. And if somebody can articulate that to me in a hypothetical, 1, they can call and add value, and 2, they can present and they're able to articulate the cost or negative consequence of doing nothing versus what could happen if they actually purchase that solution or purchase my platform, I already think I'm onto a winner. Then there's all the usual stuff on top of that, the 15-point list that we want them to be happy, tenacious, hungry, and all that other stuff that we run through all the time.
Interesting. Michael?
Yes, so I'm also a big fan of a clear process in the hiring. I fully agree. We do one step before. When we get applications, we send out a kind of a test about FX, and then we also send them a presentation that they should prepare and send in. It's quite interesting to see how big the difference is in quality of that presentation that comes back in. All I want to see is, are they taking the effort to do something before they come to this interview or not? If they just send crappy stuff in, they are not even invited. I mean, for me, it's a very easy and nice test to filter out the crap. Because if somebody is not willing to invest that little amount of work, then I know this will not be a hard worker once I hire them. Then in the interview, I follow a similar way. I mean, I ask them to pitch. Do you ask them to pitch their old pitch or already about your company?
I give them a choice. They worked at 3 different companies. Which one do you know best?
Okay,
go.
So because I think I take it one step further. I ask them to pitch me Cantox.
And I do the same.
Call me Cantox. Why do I do this? Of course, I don't expect them to be perfect, but I expect. For me, the most important thing of a person is to be curious. A sales needs to be curious. If you are not naturally curious about everything, you will not be a good sale, because you will not be curious in the other person, in the client, in the client's business. Then you will not be successful. So if a person is curious before an interview, he researches Cantox. I mean, I'm just expecting that. If you come to me in an interview, I expect you to know about Cantox already. And then you are able to at least give me a 10 let's say 10 sentences pitch about a short prospecting scenario, like exactly like you said. And it's interesting to see who is able to at least make the key bullet points, like we're a technology company, we are automating FX management for companies. So this is all I want to see. But you can find.
And I think a key point is also what Chris was raising about.
Yes.
If
and then of course if they're able to
is
immediately
talking about the
switch.
business impact.
Yes.
Right.
But that's not in the prospecting call, of course. I mean, but in the you want to see them immediately be able to have this kind of conversation. I fully agree. I don't let them present. That's something we do during the new hire training. When they get on board, then we have 1.5 weeks of new on-off boot camp, and on the second day, then they need to present. And I see already on the second day if something is okay or not.
I normally make a difference between hiring an SDR and therefore doing role play on the phone. You have 2 minutes, and we send 2 or 3 prospect contacts.
Yes.
One is junior, one is a senior, and we send them the elevator pitch, which is a 1-pager.
Yeah.
And then for more sales senior position, I like to send the current pitch of the company and tell them, well, be prepared to pitch 5-10 minutes our presentation, our statement of approach, and maybe one that where you are familiar, when you are more right to see when is familiar with the content. Therefore, I think the Oscar, how about
we do
you,
exactly
about
the same.
manager?
And we send them a demo, a recorded demo of our product, which is basically built on not a real company. And it's a case. Basically, it's like a business school case on this company. Trying to show what are the needs of this company, what are the pains that they are solving with our solution. So they need to prepare it. And when they go to the interview, basically we run a role play. They have to sell Force Manager to us. We are playing the role play as probably I'm the owner of the company. The guy next to me is the VP of sales. So it's very funny for us because we can be potentially buyers of Force Manager. So we play very well this role play. And at that time you see really if this guy has basically what he needs to have to be a good sales rep. And the thing is that when we are preparing the specification of the position, first of all we need to think about to which segment this guy is going to sell, because it's very different if he's going to be on the mid market or he's going to be more focused on big market. Because we need to find someone that has experience selling the same deal size, right? Because otherwise, if you get like a really good sales rep that it's used to work in the mid market, it's going to be very difficult for this guy to talk about 1 million deal. It's not going to work, right? So this is one of the things that we learned. He can be like extremely good on sales. He can be like very good, in the consultative selling process. But if he's not used to big numbers, it's not going to work.
So you mean you are hiring more and more by deal size?
Yes.
By proven deal size experience.
If we want to sell something that's going to be like 100K a year, he used to be used to sell things that size.
I totally share the same vision. I totally share the same vision.
Before my experience at Cantox, I would have definitely shared it as well, because I worked Oracle, IBM, Siebel, Hyperion. So these are kind of my smallest company before Cantox had 400 million in revenue already. So from that experience, managing large cross-European sales teams and stuff like that, I would have completely agreed. You need experienced salespeople to sell large deals. Our model at Cantox, our hiring model is very different. We hire quite young people. The oldest sales guy I'm having is 30. The oldest sales guy is actually 31. The average is 28. That's not very old.
They're not SDR. They are closers.
They are sales.
People that need to close. Okay.
Yes, that need to close. They are not SDRs, exactly. And it's quite an interesting experience how much you can get out of young talents with good training and a good playbook, as exactly as I said, So I have people that are 26 and they sign exactly these kind of deals on CFO level.
But you mean
They-
deals 50, 100?
50k, as said, our average is now 50k
But
per
the
year.
thing is that where I share the vision of Oscar is that when you go about deals of 300, 400, half a million, 1 million
Per year?
per year.
Okay, yeah, that's a different
That-
ballgame. But that's not
that's
what you
what-
meant.
what Oscar
You
was-
sell
Yeah, per
deals
year.
of 1
Per year,
million
per year.
Per year,
Yeah,
1
yeah,
million
yeah.
per year, yes.
Okay,
When you
that's,
start
Well,
to
not
talk
all
about-
deals, unfortunately, but
Right?
well, not 1 million, but 500,000.
I agree that with
because you said
young
100,000, that's
Yeah,
what I
it was another one. For
Yeah.
for us, mid-market, it's on the line of 50,000
Yes.
per year, and big corporations can be up to 500,000.
70,000, which then there are different types
Absolutely,
of
No, that's
it's a
different.
conversation,
That's a different
especially
I thought
bottom of the
it was at
funnel. Maybe
100K,
you can
yes.
have a young,
Yes.
energetic,
That's
and
different.
Because these guys, they
professional
try
guy bottom of
to
the
pull all the
funnel
prices
to-
down,
Yeah.
all the time. They start, with the prices down.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
have the, what I have to do, to keep the price at certain levels. Say,
I
okay,
agree.
it's like 200,000. I'm like, it's fine. But they're like, no, it's like, don't talk about the price. They're afraid, to talk about big numbers.
So what tips do you give to sales professionals that want to evolve their career in SaaS sales? To finish the conversation, what are your tips? Do you have any tips to share? Any advice?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Okay.
Yes, you.
Training.
Hmm?
Training. Read a lot of books, exchange best practices with other professionals in the industry, and learn, because it's a learning process. I'm learning every day. Everyone is learning, so I think it's extremely important. And don't expend on training. If you're going to do a training on your company, don't go to the cheapest one. Go to the best ones, right? Because these things cost money. So training absolutely it's paramount for me.
Mhm.
I agree. I mean, train every day, but also apply it. You can read a lot of books about spin and about challenger sale or any other soft skill. I mean, the key differentiator at the end will be the soft skills that you have. You will know and master your products. You will know and master at one point the industry that you sell into, and you know the language there. The real difference will be your own soft skills in selling, presenting, asking questions, and this stuff you cannot just read about and then know. You need to apply it. That's the thing. So reading a book is one thing every day, but then really make sure you apply it rigorously, and that takes a lot of discipline and courage. I mean, because often it's a change in behavior that you need to practice. And so I encourage you to find this playground where you can practice. Find partners that you can practice with in your own organization, peers. Take every engagement with clients as a learning opportunity. Reflect on how it went and learn from it. I agree. And then maybe from a more career perspective, try to find job opportunities where you are able to sell to the business executives of your clients. Very often SaaS and the IT industry is very much focused on IT and technical people on the client side. The real step forward is when you are then all of a sudden sell to the head of HR or the CFO or the head of purchasing and so on, not to the CIO anymore and the organization within IT. That's a big step forward in the career, from my perspective. Yeah.
Interesting.
I absolutely agree. One of the things that I always say, people ask me this question is, you've got to put in the hard work. Just genuinely have to put in the hard work. A lot of people want quick acceleration, they want easy success, but we're in sales. How do you get noticed? Sell a lot, okay? It sounds very simple, but sell a lot. How do you sell a lot? You've got to do all of these things. But I was the guy that was no better than anyone else, but Sunday evening I was building my list. Monday morning other people were building their list. I was on the phone.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? Right. I didn't do I'm no smarter than that guy. I just did more work. And then constantly achieving sales numbers, constantly beating records, constantly doing that. Because I was working. When everyone else was on the beach, I was on the beach with a laptop. And not all the time, but like put in some extra time in the evenings, put in some extra time at the weekend. If you really want to be successful and you really want to get there and then you really want to, really progress yourself, then you have to get noticed. You're not going to get noticed being the guy who's always in the middle, okay, in the pack. You've got to start showing, well, how did you do it? Then you'll start saying, hey, how did you do that? Well, I applied these 3-4 things. I did that. I read this book, I applied it, and then I put in more effort. Okay, can you help nurture these guys? Can you help mentor these guys? Yes, I can. Now you're in a leadership position. Now you're in a leadership position, you start learning how to teach people, you start getting them to come up. And now, hey, Chris did a great job in selling, and he was able to get those 5 people to sell more. Hey, why don't we make him a manager? Right now I'm a manager. Okay. And it all started because I was calling out Yellow Pages Monday morning at 8 o'clock. The rest of my team didn't start till 12 because I hadn't built their list, going back 10 years when we had Yellow Pages as a book, right? So my point there is literally just you've got to put in the time, you've got to put in the effort, and if you do that and you're not afraid of doing that and you apply the knowledge that you're able to get, you should start being successful and you'll get noticed, and then it's on you.
Thank you. So times for drinks.
For cold pizza.
Cold pizza, yeah.